Okay, this is a new lesson that I am just about to put up, and it is on the Bitcoin transaction flow. So it's really just simple, high level. So in every transaction, we have inputs and we have outputs. And we also have a miner fee as well. But so looking up here, we're just looking at the inputs, and the inputs are unlocking previous outputs that you have a private key for. So if you look at this little tooltip here, each of these inputs requires a digital signature, which proves that you have the private key associated with the locked Bitcoins. And this little tooltip says the unlock script, which is part of every single input that you use in a transaction, it provides the signature and public key needed to prove the ownership of the UTXO. So these inputs are UTXO, so that's unspent transaction outputs. I call them coins. I've heard them referred to as envelopes. So an envelope can contain any number of Satoshis. So each of these represents one or more Satoshis. And you're pulling them from your own UTXO set of coins that you control. So moving to the outputs are locking funds for future use, and they do not have to be at all associated with these particular inputs because we're actually destroying these inputs in this transaction. We're completely destroying them. Consuming them is also a way that they're described. So anyway, so we want to create outputs to spend those inputs. And we are locking these outputs for future use. So the lock script defines the conditions that must be met to spend this particular output. And so we can have one or more outputs and one or more inputs. So this little box down here shows you that there's also a miner fee, and that miner fee is calculated as the difference between the total inputs and the total outputs. And this ensures that the transaction is processed by miners and included in the blockchain. Also on this lesson, you can try building your own transaction. So let us clear this. All right, so let's say that we are going to spend 5 from one input and 3 from another. And then you can see down here the calculation takes that difference. And here we're paying the miners 8 BSV because we haven't even put in any output. So obviously that's way too many. Let's say that we are sending it to Frank. And let's say we're sending Frank 8 BSV. Well, that transaction won't go through because you can see down here the miner fee is 0 and you need to pay the miners. So by the way, the wallets do all this. You don't have to make these calculations yourself. This is just to show how it works. So because there are 100 million Satoshis in any one Bitcoin, you can do fractions of Bitcoin. So let's make this 3.2. So now we can see that we're sending the miners 0.2 BSV. I mean, that's probably too many. So BSV, the miner fees are very, very cheap on Bitcoin. So we're going to add an output and we're going to call this change. So that will send back to Bridget some change. And let's see, I don't know. Let's see, 0.1997. Let's see what happens. Yeah. So look at, we've got a miner fee that's reasonable. It's very, very small. And again, the wallets will calculate all of this, but you can play with this. You can add inputs. You can add outputs just to play. You can clear the builder. Yeah. So hopefully this just gives you a general sense of the transaction, of the flow in any one particular Bitcoin transaction. And I'll have this lesson up soon, not today, but sometime very soon. So make sure that you check back to the Bitcoin Teaching Bites.